Talking about how much you make and asking others how much they make always seems to land itself on the list of taboo subjects not to speak about. From a young age, we're told not to speak about money because it's impolite and a touchy subject, and that it's too private to ask or share this information with other people. I obviously don't agree. I think not talking about pay is what keeps people from not being paid equitably across jobs and industries. It would actually cost companies millions of dollars to fix their pay gap issues, which is why I think that organizations tell their employees not to talk about pay, and even go as far to write it in their handbooks that folks are not allowed to chat about pay with their coworkers. I've even heard of organizations that threaten to fire their employees if they're caught talking about their salaries. This is a myth that I want to debunk right off the bat. It is literally illegal for a company to bar you from talking about pay with your coworkers. I'm not kidding, it is literally a federally mandated law that you are allowed to talk about pay with your coworkers. There are a few exceptions to this rule that I can talk about in another video if you're interested, so leave a comment below if you are. So before I dive too deep into talking about pay with your coworkers, hi, what's up? I'm Janelle. This is Janelle Knows Money. Welcome to my channel. I'm a compensation professional that's obsessed with helping you get the job, get paid, and then help you figure out what to do with that money. Hit the subscribe button if this sounds interesting to you. I come out with new videos every week. Okay, so before I provide scripts on how to ask your coworkers how much they make, I want to go through 4 different guidelines that I use when starting pay conversations. These guidelines are important because you're not going to get very far if you just walk up to your coworker and say, hey, you need to tell me how much you make. You want somebody to be in an environment that's comfortable for them. You want them to be in an open and welcoming conversation. So let's walk through these guidelines. Okay, so guideline number 1 is to find the time and space for you and your coworker to chat on a one-on-one basis. Pay is incredibly personal, and taking somebody aside and being able to have that one-on-one conversation is going to be a lot less intense than just throwing out this question, having this conversation in front of a large group of people. Also, if it's possible, try to avoid having these conversations at work in your office or on company resources like Slack. I would recommend trying to get out of the office, perhaps going to a coffee shop to have this one-on-one conversation, or even getting your coworker's phone number and shooting them a text. Guideline number 2 is that, in my opinion, if you're going to ask somebody else for their pay information, you should be more than willing to offer your pay information in return. Personally, I would go as far as to say that you should probably disclose your pay first. Why? Because disclosing your pay first shows the other person that you guys are on the same team and that they're also going to be leaving the exchange with some additional information that might also possibly help them. Guideline number 3 is to let the person that you're asking know why you're asking. If they're a peer that you work closely with, they'll be more likely to share this information if they understand why you're asking, they understand why you have a good reason for asking the question instead of just because you want to know, which, is also a valid reason, but people typically respond better to having a very solidified reason as to what you're hoping to get out of the conversation. Some options for this might include you did some salary research and you found that you're not making the median wage for somebody in your position, or you can let them know that somebody else on your team disclosed their pay to you and you're finding that you might be underpaid. So you're trying to gather some additional information so that you can have a conversation about pay with your manager so that you can be paid equitably as compared to everyone else on your team and for the value that you bring to the table. We'll talk about some more reasons that you might disclose and how to talk about those in the scripts at the end of the guideline section. Guideline number 4 is to give the person that you're chatting with an out, meaning give them an opportunity to say no to disclosing their pay. Really let them know that it is okay if they're not open to or willing to disclose their pay to you. Some folks might not have the same desire that you have to understand your pay as well as their peers' pay and how they fit into what that looks like across the company. And sometimes folks can even feel resentful if they feel like you're coming at them in a way that is forcing them to disclose their pay. You want the other person to feel like they're choosing to disclose their salary to you. You don't want them to feel like you are forcing them to tell you. Anytime we're having hard conversations or we're negotiating, we want both parties to feel comfortable because the conversation is going to go most smoothly when both people feel like they're getting something out of it, both people are comfortable, both people are happy with the conversation. You need to remind the person that you guys are on the same team. And not even just reminding, but you want them to feel like you're on the same team. Okay, now that we have those guidelines out of the way, let's talk about the ask. Like I mentioned before, because pay is such a sensitive topic, we want to take a moment to really consider how we're going to ask somebody what their salary is before we actually do it. Again, we want the person to feel like we're coming off as being genuine and authentic in the way that we're asking, and not like we're being demanding and or greedy in any type of way. We really don't want them to feel like we're prying to get the information out of them. Taking the guidelines we just discussed into consideration, I'm going to give you 5 different scripts for how to talk about pay with your coworkers. I want to give a few different options because not everybody has the same communication style. Not everybody feels super comfortable having conversations about pay. And so what might work for me might not work for you, might not work for the next person. And so I'm hoping that everybody gets something out of this. Something you can also do is take the script examples that I give you and adapt them to your communication style so that they feel good to you. All right, so for script number 1, you're gonna start warming the person up to talking about pay by saying something like this. I did some salary research for our position and I'm getting the sense that I'm significantly underpaid. I'm hoping that you'd be able to test out my theory. If the person that you're chatting with seems open to having the conversation, then I would continue with this. Would you be open to telling me your salary or telling me whether you were under or over a certain number? I'm more than happy to share my salary with you, but also want to make sure that you're comfortable having this conversation. From there, you can have a conversation organically about pay and get a sense for what your coworker is making. For script number 2, if you're feeling a little bit nervous about having a pay conversation where you're directly asking what somebody makes, we can give you something that's a little bit more generalized so we can still get to what they're making, but again, in a far more generalized manner. It'll look something like this. I did some salary research and I found that people in our job are making X dollars to X dollars per year. I'm not even making close to that. Do you think it's possible to make X dollars per year? This way you are starting the conversation without giving away any of your personal salary details and without asking your coworker what their salary details are specifically, which gives them the opportunity to have a conversation with pay with you without disclosing their numbers if they don't feel comfortable. If the conversation does go in the direction of you being able to ask them what they make, definitely go for it. You got this. For this next one, we're gonna do a script based off the fact that maybe you found out somebody else's pay at work, and so you wanna check in with another coworker to see if they're also making as much as your other coworker who told you their salary, so that you can kind of get some additional points of reference for how much you should be making. This is how it would start. I chatted with a few individuals at work and they told me that they're making X dollars per year. I'm making around X dollars per year less than they are, and I'm getting a sense that I'm not being paid equitably. Would you be able to help me understand what you make? I understand if you don't want to tell me the exact number, but it would help to understand the range that you're in, or if you're making around the same as our other coworkers. Script number 4 is another way to ask your coworkers how much they make, just in a little bit different of a language. It'll go something like this. I checked multiple salary sites and they said that someone in our job would be making X dollars per year. I'm only making X dollars per year, which seems to be below the range for the job. Would you be able to give me a ballpark number of what you're making per year so that I can better understand what the pay actually looks like for this job? I'm hoping to ask for a salary increase during this upcoming merit season, and I just want to be prepared. Okay, so for script number 5, we're gonna do something that's a little bit different. If you work in an environment where it is not okay to ask your coworkers about pay, or if it would create some type of situation if you did ask your coworkers about pay, you could always do some type of cold email messaging or use your network and ask friends that are in similar positions at different companies. If we are gonna cold message, we're gonna wanna keep our message short and sweet and to the point. As we know, cold messaging is kind of a numbers game. So we're gonna have to send out a lot of different messages to folks in order to get any type of data in, but don't be discouraged. Somebody at some point is gonna respond and you're gonna get a salary data point and it's gonna be super helpful. I actually found a sample message that you could send on LinkedIn by Broke Millennial, who is Erin Lowry. And so I'm gonna read it off because I thought it was so fantastic that there's no need to even shift it or change it in any way. Okay, I'll read it off. Hi, I'm preparing to ask for a raise, or insert your reason for asking. You can also include additional context that might be relevant, such as I recently learned I am under earning compared to coworkers, or that my company doesn't seem to compensate at a fair market rate. As I prepare for my meeting with my boss, it would be helpful for you to share what you think I should be making or what salary you recommend I ask for. Even a ballpark would be appreciated. And then sign your name. I would also like to add to this email cold message that you could also offer them something in return. You could also say, if there's anything that I'd ever be able to help you with, let me know. I'm also happy to share my salary with you if it would be helpful. Anything that would feel a little bit like an exchange for the individual that you're cold messaging out to, instead of just making an ask. I think sometimes it's helpful to know that you want to give them value as well. You want to connect to them as well, and that you're not just reaching out to them because you need something. All in all, if you've learned anything from this video, I just want you to know that you can talk about pay with your coworkers, and that I think you should talk about pay with your coworkers more often. It's the only way that we can ensure that we're all being paid equitably across jobs and industries. The pay gap is still very real, and the only way to solve it is to take it into our own hands. I hope learning about my 4 different guidelines for asking about your coworker's salary, as well as hearing my 5 different scripts for having pay conversations, was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. I always respond to my DMs there as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye.